Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled people story. The 150-year-old McAllister farmstead was my pride and joy. 3 generations of my family had lived on and worked this beautiful plot of land in the heart of the countryside. The weathered red barn, stately farmhouse, and rolling green pastures were my sanctuary, filled with cherished memories from a lifetime of tradition. I remember as a child my grandfather Wilbur telling me stories as we walked together through the golden fields, his weathered hands gently guiding mine as he taught me about the cycles of life on a farm. After he passed, my father took over the daily tasks of tending the land, but Grandpa Wilbur's spirit lived on. When I finished school, I happily settled into my role as a humble farmer, nurturing the crops and livestock as my ancestors had done. The years went by peacefully as they always had. Neighbors came and went, new houses cropped up along the main road over time, but our expansive farmland remained untouched, a refreshing constant in the ever-changing world around us. That is, until she arrived. Barbara Blackwell, the self-appointed Homeowners Association president of the new housing development Oak Tree Estates. She drove her shiny black Mercedes down our dirt road one muggy June morning, waving paperwork out the window as she pulled up to the house, nearly trampling my prize-winning pumpkins. "Good news!" she exclaimed, her peppy voice grating on my nerves instantaneously. "Oak Tree Estates just expanded and purchased a chunk of your unused land. You're officially part of our Happy Homeowners Association family now." I was stunned speechless as she prattled on about joining fees, committees, neighborhood barbecues, and her grand plans to modernize the area. Modernize? This was McAllister farmland, not a plot in her plastic cookie-cutter subdivision. Anger bubbled up inside me. Over the next weeks, Barbara dropped by daily, each time with new demands. Paint color approvals, tree trimming, even wanting to install a community garden in my south pasture, and repeated threats to get my eyesore farm in line with Homeowners Association guidelines. Through gritted teeth, I asked her to leave every time, but the final straw was the day I found posts installed along my back fence. A construction crew ready to start building on what they thought was now Homeowners Association property. Furious, I called the county clerk and my lawyer, Uncle Bill. The deed Barbara kept waving around was a fake. This was outright land theft. Uncle Bill helped me file an injunction to stop the construction. The battle had begun. Over the next months, Barbara's friendly mask slipped, revealing her true vindictive nature. She poured sugar in my gas tank, knocked down yard decorations, and threatened to poison my livestock. Meanwhile, her lawyer was no match for Uncle Bill in court. Her phony papers were proven fraudulent. The judge ruled in my favor. She had no claim to my family's farm. Just when I thought it was over, Uncle Bill uncovered something even more shocking. As Homeowners Association president, Barbara had siphoned tens of thousands in association fees into her personal accounts. She was sentenced to 5 years in prison for her white-collar crimes. Justice was sweet. In the end, I settled back into my pastoral life, thankful to have escaped that bitter, entitled woman's clutches. The future of my family's farm is secure. Come what may, this land will remain our legacy, to be passed down for generations to come. Update? I thought Barbara Blackwell was out of my life for good, but last week she turned up yet again like a bad penny. Out on parole, she had the audacity to apply for a job on my farm. I kindly told her she wasn't welcome here. Some people just don't know when to quit. The next one is a pro-revenge story. This subreddit has gotten me through a lot of boredom and has provided me with hours of entertainment. I figure it's my turn to tell my revenge story. So it's been about 4 years since this happened. I was about 18 at the time, working for a security company. There were constant call-offs and no-shows. I have no idea why. But being so young and naive, I was constantly working 16-hour shifts and not coming home until 8 a.m. Also, I lived with my father at the time. The time frame of this was around the 4th of July. I finally had a day off, and my best friend was back in town for vacation. We decided to get together and chip in on some good old American fireworks. To be fair, I have had nothing but bad experiences with fireworks, so I had no idea how this would be any different. We got home with the fireworks, and we laid them all out on the floor. Sparklers, bottle rockets, cakes, and Roman candles. I said, "Why don't we mess around with some sparklers since it's still not dark yet?" Great idea. We went into my backyard where it hadn't rained in well over 2 months, and it was extremely dry. You see the problem here? One of the little sparkies from my friends and my sparkler made contact with the ground and started two small fires that quickly spread to a large area. I ran as fast as I could to grab the garden hose and quickly started spraying down the fire. It was no use, it was spreading faster than I could spray it. I handed my friend the hose and called cop. What felt like hours was only 4 minutes, and the fire was spreading to the neighbor's fence. The neighbor came outside, and they were fairly calm. They grabbed their hose and sprayed down the fence along with the dead grass in her yard. The fire department finally showed up, and I told my friend, "Only one of us needs to get in trouble, you should leave." He was reluctant to leave because he felt equally responsible, but I convinced him. I didn't want him to get in trouble and have to drop out of college. My neighbor was super chill about the entire situation at first. I told her that we could talk about replacing the fence and get some quotes to repair it. She was just super grateful that everyone was okay. About 2 hours after the fire, the arson fire investigator came to question me about the fire. I told him the truth. I said I was in the backyard by myself playing with fireworks and accidentally lit the ground on fire. I got off that day without facing any charges and was commended for being honest. Here is where it goes downhill very fast. About a week later, I get a knock on the door from the neighbor. I opened the door and she handed me 2 pieces of paper to look at. There was a quote for the fence valued at around $4,000 and an estimate for lawn care valued around $6,000. These were really shady and just typed out on a Microsoft Word document. No logo or company name. She then adds, "I will also be having you pay my water bill for 3 months because the new yard will need lots of water." Now, the fence this woman had before was raggedy and falling apart. Her yard, dead grass, weeds everywhere, never mowed it. Now, looking at this paper, she wants a mahogany fence and a brand new backyard with flowers and trimmed hedges. I said, "I need to get an estimate myself. This doesn't feel right." She says, "Remember, you agreed to replace my fence, and a real man keeps promises." I shut the door and called my dad to tell him about what just happened. He flipped out and told me, "Son, don't you give that slut a single dime." He gave me the number to his handyman and told me to take care of it. The next day I had the guy come out for an estimate, and the neighbor ran outside flailing her arms, saying, "I did not give you permission to get an estimate on my fence." Technically, it separates the property line, so it's both of our fences. She called the cops on me for having a contractor, and they ultimately couldn't do a single thing because I'm on my property. He quickly finishes the estimate at $1,200. I also knew a guy who did lawn care from my time working at the grocery store. He estimated the lawn reseeding while she was away from the house to be about $800. After I got these estimates, I gave copies to the woman, and she wasn't pleased. "I don't know these people. I don't want them near my house. They're probably really crappy contractors." I said, "No, I know them personally. They are really nice people and do great work." She shut the door in my face, and I went on my way. I ended up working a 16-hour shift that night and got home at 8 a.m. This woman comes knocking on my door at 9 a.m. and demands I speak to her. I explained, "I would really love to do this, but I just got home, and I have to be back at work in less than 5 hours. I need to sleep." She goes, "What kind of lazy asshat sleeps in until 2 p.m.? At this point, I had about lost it and told her, "You can either accept my $2,000 for my quotes or kiss my ass and get nothing." She stood there for a while with her mouth gaping open, but she accepted my offer and planned to meet down at the notary the next morning. I spent that night after I got off work writing a contract and gathering the $2,000 in cash. The next morning I woke up and grabbed this contract to meet down at the notary. I was thrilled to finally be done with this woman and never speak to her again. I waited for her for over 3 hours and she didn't show up. I got a call from her saying, "I'm sorry, the $2,000 isn't enough. I'm having my guys start work on this project and you will be paying me the full price." Oh, really? After that, I did not say a single word to her, and I watched for a few months as these guys turned her backyard into an oasis, complete with a small pond, brand new sod, and flowers, the whole 9 yards. Come to find out, she had plans to remodel these things for a long time and was just waiting for the opportunity to go through with it. Also, during this time, she used her remodel funds to go on a trip to Hawaii. You know how I found out about this? She was bragging about it on the neighborhood Facebook group and didn't know I was in it. I have a different Facebook name than my real name. Are you ready for the revenge? Now, 4 months after the fire and all the remodels, I got served papers to go to court for $10,300. At 18 years old, I'm having to hire a lawyer to work my case. When we finally got into court, I laid everything out. The quotes, being harassed multiple times, not showing up after agreeing to a deal, not wanting me to get my own quotes, required by law, by the way, and her bragging about screwing me out of money, and I had proof of all of this. The judge looked at her and said, "Ma'am, with all due respect, you're out of your damn mind. Not only did this young man tell the truth of what happened, but he also offered to pay you more than he was supposed to. Your lawn was already dead before the fire occurred, therefore he is only responsible for the fence, which amounts to $1,200. I will also deduct his lawyer fees, $800, from this amount. So, I burned this woman's fence down, and all I have to give her is $400? Cool. She took a huge financial loss from this. I'm not sure how much the Hawaii trip cost her, but she was in serious debt. She ended up having to sell the house because of it and moved into a smaller one. I haven't heard anything from her since. The next one is a petty revenge story. This is a tale my mom told me about an encounter she had with a wild Karen and how she got a little bit of revenge against her for being, well, a Karen. This took place some years back when I was in high school. Not sure if they still do, but at the time my old high school held an annual charity auction. All kinds of items of all shapes and sizes were donated to the school for this event. A traditional auction was held in the gym for the bigger, more expensive items, while the smaller items were delegated to silent auctions in the cafeteria and hallways. If you don't know how a silent auction works, in this case, the items were set out on a table, each with a sheet of paper where interested parties could write down their names and how much they wanted to bid. Each table had a little timer to indicate how long the silent auction lasted and a pen so guests could write down their bids. One year, my parents decided to attend the auction. The items on sale in the gym were a bit too pricey, so my mom decided to focus on some of the silent auction items. When they arrived, she spotted a few she was interested in, wrote down a bid, and she and my dad went off to enjoy the rest of the event. Sometime later, my mom went wandering again and happened upon one table, just as the timer on it was about to run out. This table had one of the items she bid on, and she was still the highest bidder, until Karen entered the picture and outbid her. Under normal circumstances, my mom would have been content to let the item go, wanting it but not bad enough to start a bidding war over it. However, she changed her tune after witnessing what Karen did next. There's only one pen per table, and to ensure no one tried to outbid her, once Karen finished writing her bid, she proceeded to hold the pen to her chest, like Gollum clutching the One Ring. Needless to say, Karen wanted to win no matter what, and refused to give up the pen even when politely asked. Not taking too kindly to cheaters, my dearest mother decided it was time Karen was taught a lesson with a bit of petty revenge. There was a student monitoring the tables, and she asked him if he had a spare pen, which he did. She took this pen and proceeded to write down her next bid very, very slowly. Remember when I said that my mom arrived just as the table's timer was almost up? Well, there was less than a minute left, and my mom wrote as slowly as possible to stall for time so Karen couldn't follow up with another bid. Karen tried, of course. Upon seeing what my mom was doing, Karen took her coveted pen and tried to write in another bid under my mom's name while she was still writing, but my mom, being left-handed and Karen right-handed, positioned her hand and arm in such a way that Karen couldn't get in. When my mom told me the story, she demonstrated all the ways Karen tried to squeeze in, and it was hilarious. Mom kept an eye on the clock, and when there were only a few seconds left, she quickly finished writing her bid, and that was that. She won. The student prevented Karen from trying to write another bid, and Karen walked away defeated. Moral of the story: play fair and don't be a jerk. You never know who is watching and what it will bring out in people. The next one is a malicious compliance story. Florida recently passed a controversial bathroom law, which requires individuals to use the restroom corresponding to the gender specified on their birth certificate. I identify as non-binary and have faced medical challenges since childhood that were disregarded by doctors, resulting in the removal of my reproductive organs and parts of my intestine. Later, I chose to undergo additional procedures as a preventative measure against cancer. Although I haven't pursued hormone replacement therapy, HRT, my appearance is now quite androgynous. I'm not particularly concerned about the pronouns people use for me, and my wife playfully switches between them based on what she finds amusing at the time. At work, we were informed that the law would be strictly enforced, and any staff member who violated it could face police involvement, not just disciplinary action. It's worth noting that our building only has one gender-neutral restroom, located in the administrative offices, and it requires buzzing in. Once inside, you need to contact a facility's staff member to unlock the door, and security closely monitors its use. They place a great emphasis on maintaining a certain level of control around here. Unfortunately, I was reported for using the wrong restroom, even though it aligns with the gender on my birth certificate. To be honest, I don't mind which restroom I use, and in the past, I've used whichever was available due to my frequent bathroom visits resulting from the aforementioned surgery in my IBS. This incident vividly demonstrates the absurdity of this law and how it will inevitably lead to discrimination based solely on appearance. When I was informed of the report, I made it clear that I was abiding by the law. Luckily, I didn't face any consequences, but I was told to be mindful of how others perceive me. That's when I decided to comply, but with a twist. I've exclusively started using the administrative restroom, intentionally wasting the time of multiple individuals. I press the buzzer and make someone unlock the door for me. I've already filed a complaint about the delayed response time, highlighting the potential violation of Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA regulations, due to the denial of restroom access. I make sure to use the restroom after administrative hours, ensuring that security and facilities personnel must come up to report the incident. Furthermore, I plan to file a complaint each time I wait longer than 5 minutes for their arrival. During closing hours, when I'm on the floor, I inform the manager on duty that I can't check and clear both restrooms. Instead, I ask them to find another staff member and interrupt their closing duties, reminding them that failure to comply could lead to police involvement. Many of my colleagues are enjoying this and providing support by doing the same during closing. It helps that we're now receiving an extra 15 minutes of overtime pay due to the closing procedures. Our time clock rounds to the nearest 15 minutes, and this applies to everyone in the building. Consequently, approximately 20 people accumulate overtime each day, which adds up over time. After confronting me about why I'm using their restroom, an individual from the administrative team mentioned that they are currently exploring the possibility of converting our existing restrooms into gender-neutral facilities. I welcome the idea, but I also informed them that I will continue to use the administrative restroom until the changes are made. Some of my co-workers have expressed their intention to do the same. While the law itself is still problematic, my hope is that through persistent annoyance, we can at least bring about change within our district. The next one is an entitled people story. I just left my job of 5 years for reasons unrelated to this event, but it's had me thinking about some moments throughout my tenure there in which I encountered people who demonstrated the most absolute unmitigated gall. I was an events curator for a culture and arts organization, and I was part of a pretty small team, which meant my colleagues and I filled every role possible when we ran events. We worked the door, checked tickets, introduced the events, and held Q&As with panelists, then bartended afterward if there was a wine reception. It wasn't easy for guests to figure out exactly what we did there since we were all over the place. Often we had a lot of entitled people, EPs, talking to us like they thought we were waitstaff, which obviously it's not acceptable to talk to waitstaff this way either, when we poured drinks. What they didn't realize was that, 1, my colleagues and I are not in food service or customer service of any kind. There is no manager to complain about us, and we make the rules and reserve the right to refuse service to anybody for any reason. There is no corporate we answer to, etc. 2, these were 100% free events with complimentary wine and snacks occasionally, so we were under no obligation to give EPs more than a small glass of our wine or a taste of the food we served. We weren't there to get people loaded or feed them dinner, and that pissed off quite a few people over the years. We grew to recognize the ones who came to our events just to get free wine and snacks and didn't hesitate to set boundaries with them and ban people who tried to take advantage of the complimentary receptions. After one event, we were serving food and wine, and the crowd bum-rushed the bar and formed a huge line. There was one single combined line for the food and wine since we set it up for guests to get a plate of the food first, then get a pre-poured glass of wine. A few people politely asked if they could skip the line and go straight to the wine because they didn't want food, and my colleagues and I politely let them know in return that there was enough wine and food for everybody, so if everybody waited in the same line, they would still get the wine they wanted. We wanted to avoid creating a second line just for people who only wanted wine and generating unnecessary confusion. The polite people understood and waited in line, and sure enough, there was still enough for them when they reached the bar. Enter an EP, a feisty elderly man I'd recognized as a grabby hands, aka those who come just for free stuff, type from past events. He charges around the side of the line to the front of the bar where I'm pouring wine and says to me, "Just give me 2 glasses of wine." Me. That's what everybody else in the line is waiting for too. Him. But they're waiting for food and wine. I just want the wine. Just give me 2 glasses. Me. There are other people in line who also just want wine. Him. Just give me the 2 glasses. Me. No, you're not cutting. You can get in line and wait like everybody else. Him. Oh, duck you, man. Me. You can say that if you want, but you're still not cutting. You're being rude to everybody else. Him. You're the one being rude. Me. I'm being rude, but you're the one yelling duck you to a stranger. Him. Duck you. Me. Having already put in my month's notice and not giving a crap anymore. Duck you too, man. He goes back to where his presumably wife is standing, and I hear him call me an a-hole. His wife, and this is where this story gets, and the whole train clapped vibes, but I swear it happened like this, says, "No, you're being an a-hole." I was kind of shocked to hear her try to put him in his place, since I'm used to EPs coming in pairs when it comes to married folk. Anyway, having heard her response, I look over at him and give a kind of, "I told you so" look, to which he tells "duck you" again. I said, "You know, I should kick you out. You don't just get to go around talking to people like that." We have poor security protocol in place for these events, which was why I said I should kick him out, but ultimately couldn't unless I told our receptionist to call the police. The guy huffs, "You know what, we'll just leave instead." I answered, "Even better." He stormed out with his wife in tow. I felt really bad for her. She must have been so embarrassed that she didn't even look at or speak to me and my colleagues as they left. Poor lady, having to deal with a guy like that for who knows how many years. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.